In today's video, we are going to be having a play around with Webhooks by Airtable Automations, which is a fantastic way to automate workflows in your day-to-day business. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Connor, and on this channel I help people who cannot code build online businesses with no-code tools like Webflow, Airtable, and Zapier. So in today's video, I'm going to be making a quick little tutorial on how you can use Webhooks by Airtable Automations to automate certain workflows if you don't want to use a third-party automation tool like Zapier or Integromat. So I'm going to be going over three specific examples. The first one is when someone submits a form inside of Webflow. The second example is when a new person signs up to your Memberstack account. And then finally, I am going to show you how you can set up a webhook when someone makes a payment to your Stripe account. And we're going to take all of the information that we get from that webhook and send it to an Airtable table. Now, of course, before we get into it, do me a quick little favor. Subscribe to that channel if you want to learn more about no code. Also, I would very much appreciate if you could leave a quick little like on this video. It really helps the channel out a lot. But with all of that being said, let's get into it. Okay, so let's start off with the first setup, which is when someone submits a form inside of your Webflow project. So the example that we are going to be using today is when someone fills out the email newsletter form on my tutorial pages on my website. And so what I'm going to do to get the ball rolling is just add my own email address in here. And now we're going to use Webhooks by Airtable Automations to take that information that was just submitted to that form and store it inside of one of our Airtable tables. So the first thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to jump into the Automations tab, and then we're going to have to create a new automation. So what we're going to do is we're going to call this the newsletter lead automation. And now what we want to do is we want to pick a trigger type, and the trigger types work very similar to how triggers work inside of Zapier. So the one that we're going to be working with is when a webhook is received. Now I've made a video about webhooks on this channel, so if you are completely unfamiliar with what webhooks are and how they work, go back and check that out and then come back to this video, because it will make it a lot easier to understand where I'm coming from with all of this. So as you can see here, Airtable provides you with a URL that you now want to copy and now take over to Webflow. So inside of Webflow, what you want to do is you want to move over to your project settings, and then you want to navigate your way to the integrations tab. Now, if you scroll right to the bottom of your integrations tag, you'll see that you have a webhook section. And so what we're going to do now is we are going to create a new webhook. So this little pop-up is going to come up and it's going to ask you to define the trigger type, and the trigger type that we're going to be working with is a form submission. And so now from here, it asks you to add the webhook URL, which we have just gotten out of Airtable Automations. So it is this link right here, and what we're going to do is we're going to copy it and paste it right into here. Now, as soon as you have added it, you'll see that it gets added to your list of webhooks right at the bottom there. And as soon as that is set up, we're pretty much good to go and test the workflow. So the way that you can test whether or not a webhook has been received inside of Airtable is just by clicking on the Run Test button. Now you can see that if you test it right now, it says test failed, and that is because we haven't actually sent anything to that webhook yet. Before, when I submitted that form, we didn't actually have that webhook set up, which means that it only counts form submissions that happen from this point forward. So I'm going to go back to my account, and what I'm going to do is I am going to again just type in my email address, and then I'm going to submit it. So now if I jump back into Airtable and I test the webhook again, you can see that the test ran successfully. And so what you can do now is you can actually open it up, and what you'll see is that a webhook was found, as you can see here, and inside of that webhook you have your body. Now if you click on that, it will open up everything that was inside of that body. So we've got the name of the form, the site ID, and a whole bunch of other things, but what we're interested in is the data field. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on that and open that up, And now you can see that we have got two types of data in there. First of all, the email that I just submitted, and then secondly, the slug of the tutorial so that I know what page someone was on when they submitted the newsletter form. So with all of that information, what we can now do is send this information to our table inside of Airtable. So I'm going to click on done, and now I'm going to select an action type, and the action type that we are going to be working with is the create record action. So we're just going to click into that, and then we need to specify what table are we going to be sending this data to. So in our case, we are going to be sending this to the newsletter table. And now what we can do is we can start specifying what we want to populate these fields here with. So I am going to start off by adding the name field, and I am going to use the email that our subscriber added as the name field. So I'm just going to jump in here. I'm going to click on the blue plus button, and then it will open up all of the information that you received in that first step when the webhook was received. So just jump in there, click on continue, and then you'll see the body section pop up. Click on continue again, then go down to where you see data, click on the continue button again, and then you'll have all the fields that you can then dynamically populate. So for the name field, I want to insert the email. So I'm just going to click on the blue insert button. And as you can see here, now this field has been populated. And what I can do now is just go ahead and add the next field. So the other field that I want to fill out with dynamic content is the tutorial field. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to select the tutorial field, and then I'm just going to go through the exact same process again, which is clicking on the plus button, opening up the information that I received through the webhook, and then selecting the tutorial slug, and then I am good to go. Now, one quick note for the status field, if you have different statuses, you can also just write in here what stage someone is in. So for example, if you want to first review it, you can just also just write in the field a static value, and that will then automatically populate as well. But now that we've got all of our fields populated, we can just go ahead and run a test. And as you can see now, the email was submitted as well as the tutorial on which page the subscriber was on when they submitted that email address. Okay, so on to example number 2, where we are going to send membership data to Airtable when someone signs up to our Memberstack site. So I'm just going to do it on the Unicorn Factory, and basically the way it works is someone comes and signs up, and once that sign up happens, all of this information will be sent to Memberstack, and that is where we're going to be getting our webhook from. So again, inside of Memberstack, what you want to do is you want to navigate your way down to the settings part of your website and then click on webhooks. That will again take you to a very similar page as we saw inside of Webflow, where it has all of the different webhooks listed that you can use. So the trigger type that we're going to be using is when a new member is created inside of Memberstack. And again here, what we're going to need to do is first of all select our trigger type, which is already selected as a new member, but then we also need to set up the webhook URL that we are going to be getting from Airtable. And so again, all we need to do here is we need to just jump in, create a new automation, and we're going to call this one Memberstack sign up. Select the trigger type, which is when a webhook is received. Copy and paste over your webhook into Memberstack. And then as soon as it's set up, we can go through the process again of testing the webhook. So again, just fill out your name. And once the sign up is submitted, again, navigate your way back to your webhook inside of Airtable Automations, run the test, and you'll see that the test ran successfully. And again, if you open up your body, you'll get all of the information that someone submitted and that the webhook passes through. Okay, so we're gonna start off by figuring out what fields we can populate. So the first one is going to be the email field, which again, I'm going to make the first field right here. And then you can see that sometimes values are stored inside of a subsection of your webhook. So in my case, my first name and last name is inside of the profile section. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead here, click on a new field, add it as first name, and then I'll also add another one for the last name. And then again, all we need to do is just go through the process of mapping up the information that we receive through our webhook to our fields inside of Airtable. So again, we're going to go ahead, create a record, select the table, which in our case is now Memberstack signups. And now we're going to go ahead and populate the fields. So field number 1 is email. And what we're going to do is just again, open up our webhook, and we are going to select the field, which in this case is the email field. Next, we are going to select the first name field, and again, dynamically populate it with the values that we received inside of that webhook, which you can find under profile. And then we're just going to go ahead and insert it. And then finally, we're going to wrap it up by also dynamically inserting the last name exactly in the same way as we just did with the first name. And as soon as that is done, we're going to run the test. And as you can see right here, all of the information is automatically populated. And then we are going to jump into the final example, which is registering the Stripe payments that you may receive and sending all of that information again to your Airtable account. So I have switched my account to view testing data. In case you want to test it yourself, you can just switch this button on here and you can then send example values over. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start off by navigating our way to the developers section. And then in there, we are going to use webhooks. Inside of your webhook section, you can then just go up in here and add a new endpoint. And as soon as you open that up, again, you're going to be asked to add your URL as well as what events you actually want to send. So the one that we're going to be using is when a charge is successful. So that is essentially when payments are made. Now, again, we need to just navigate our way back into Airtable, select our trigger type again, which is when a webhook is received. Then we just want to go and copy that webhook URL over into Stripe and paste it into where you can find the endpoint URL. And then we can just go ahead and add the endpoint. So the next thing that we want to do, just in order to test it, is to create a payment. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put in a number. And then you can manually enter card information, and the test card that Stripe makes available is 424242 in case you want to test it out yourself. And then we're just going to click on submit payment. And now we have made a successful payment. So now with that payment being made, we can just go ahead and run a test. And again, now you'll see that the test ran successfully. And now if we go and have a look inside of the body, you can see that all of the information was submitted. So you can see, for example, what the ID was for the particular event. You can see the information that sits inside of the body, for example, what is in the statement. You can also get the receipt URL. You can get the actual dollar amount that was spent. So this is 1,000, which stands for 1,000 cents. And so you can basically take whatever information that you want from inside of that webhook and go ahead and store it inside of your Airtable base. Okay friends, so those are 3 different examples of how you can use webhooks by Airtable Automations. Now, the main reason why I wanted to make this video is because it's a really great way to potentially move some of your zaps that you have inside of either Zapier or Integromat to something like Airtable Automations, because using Airtable Automations doesn't cost anything extra, and it can really take care of some really heavy or high volume workflows. And obviously that is very good, especially if you want to stay within certain payment tiers inside of your automation tools. Now, this is just a really great way to also get comfortable with using certain aspects of code when working in no-code tools, because understanding even just a little bit of code really opens up a whole bunch of opportunities of things that you can do that with no-code tools are otherwise not possible. So definitely have a play around with it, especially if you're just getting started in no-code. Experiment around with webhooks. Have a look at how you can integrate other tools outside of the tools that I showed you in this video and see what you can make happen with it. Other than that, if this was a useful video, please smash the like button. Also, thank you so much for sticking around for the entire video, and I'll see you back here for the next one.